Welcome to Shiny Side Out with David Mackey on WZZR, broadcasting from Australia for Revolution Radio on, you guessed it, www.revolution.radio, where it's more than just radio, so jump into the chat room if you can. This is show number, can you believe it? It's difficult to believe. I still have to think about it every time I do read it out. The next one, 345. Just so you can keep track. And if you know we're talking about something we've talked about in the last show, you know how to go back in time and find the archive. It's awesome. Okay, today's date is the 21st of October. We're coming to you in America from the future. It's not so bad. At least war hasn't broken out today and the economy's still going. Just to let people know, in case something happens, that I think they're running on generators at the moment at the station because of high winds and some power issues. So just an FYI. All right, next. It's on air, online, and on your smart device. What more could you ask for? So grab an app to listen from anywhere, at all, listening anywhere at all, and possibly even at home on a Grace tabletop digital radio. If you missed it, Solaris had a great show, as she always does. And today, her guest was Steve Colburn, and they're talking Mars, ETs, contactees, politics, geopolitical topics, and in the end I heard them talking about contactees, of which I'm one, I believe, from what I can remember, from what I can understand has happened to me, that I would probably consider myself a contactee. I wouldn't really like to go as far as to say abductee, because you know what, if the situation was different, in which, you know, they sent you a text, you said, sure, I'll see you tomorrow night, I'd say yes. I wouldn't say no. If I had a choice, I would say yes to contact with ETs. I believe that the universe is so vast that they must exist, but in what capacity do they actually exist? It's a good question. Are they just out of phase in our current reality? Do they live in an alternate universe? Do they share the current universe with us? Are there multiple universes in which there are existences everywhere? Are there multiple? Are there the 52 species living within our own current universe, having current contact with the current governments of the world? Is all this still going on? Saddened to see this week, I think we lost 2 people from the abductee. The press conference. We lost 2 people. I can't remember the fellow's name now. I will, by the end of the show, I'll declare the fellow's name. Poor fellow, to be honest. I feel sorry for anyone who gets out there in the public light and declares all this and then suddenly dies, usually it dies of an accidental death or riddled with cancer from top to bottom, as it looks like it might be a technology weapon that instigates it just to get rid of you, right? You'll have some time in the sun, but then that's the end of that. You hear us talk about Solaris all the time. And every single week we follow her show, and she has a great show, great time slot, great guests, and that's where we come in after her show. And it's difficult. Imagine, you know, being a great comic, but then coming in after an even better comic. I have to say, Solaris' shows are awesome. If you want to get hold of her shows, if you don't know what the hell I'm talking about, then it's really easy. It only costs $5.95. Jump into the archives of the station. I do that. It's just a monthly fee. I don't even see it, to be honest. It's so small, $5.95. That's like a triple shot coffee that I start my day with anyway. And why not? If I just go one day without it, I've just subscribed to the station archives. Do the same thing. And then you can listen in your own time. I mean, we're all used to that now. We're all used to, Netflix or Stan or whatever platform you've got, recordable TV, TiVo, even that's gone. But, I have my cable provider. I still have cable. And we've got YouTube, so just watch whatever you want, whenever you want. We'll do the same thing with radio. Pick up Solaris' shows or our shows or any of the host shows on Revolution Radio after the fact. Do that. Just pick it up. Listen when you want. Now, if Meki were with me today, we would both acknowledge the traditional custodians of the land. Where I live, it's the Dark and Jung people. And where Meki lives, it's the Garuk people. We live in two separate regions of Sydney. I'm just north, he's just west. And we pay our respects to elders, past, present, and future. Now, when Meki ceases that sentence there, I continue it with, and let us remember that our houses, beneath our houses, the concrete, the roads, the buildings, are lands which have had stories passed down for 240,000 generations. And I'm going to say at least. And that's something else. So considering that we're just living here we're like the drifters who've come in to an abandoned house. The house had a life before we got here. And now our little tiny existence in it for 200 years is nothing compared to the 10,000, 40,000, 60,000 years, 100,000 years. Wherever you live, someone lived there before. Just remember that. That's really important. And they lived here for a long time before we had all of the stuff we have. And if there's a time when we don't have what we have, you better connect with that. You better connect with how it is that you can live off the land. Yes, most of the animals were killed. Most of the buffalo, I think, there was a massacre to try and reduce the Indian numbers by the white Americans. And I've seen a pile of bones so big, it's crazy. There's I think nearly 1 million of them were slaughtered. Just slaughtered. That's just appalling. Anyway, having said all that, this is Shiny Side Out. I'm Dave from Shiny Side Out. And if you're just catching us for the first time, welcome aboard. It isn't so terrible. The ride isn't that rough. Meki and I would joke about Shiny Side Out as tinfoil hat zone territory, where if the conversations are getting a little tinfoil hatty, that we'll say, keep your arms inside the vehicle, no flash photography, and suspend all personal reality inverters. I think it's really important. You may, in your life, you've gravitated to this station, you know where it's all about, but in your life you may have already woken up. And it's difficult to wake someone who's in a trance. And a trance is today not just by the ultimate media outlets, the very few of them that are owned all by the same people, not just by them. It's now driven by an AI behind your social media platform that you use. And that information that you're receiving is driven to urge you back to the fold. That's what it's doing. There's plenty of videos and information out there from the people that were doing the controlling before they turned the AI on, where this was the goal, and now it's in place. And if you're like me, and I hope you are, that you've discovered in the last maybe 2.5 to 3 months a steep dive off of conspiracy material, anti-establishment information is now gone. I'm really receiving just light and fluffy stuff, almost like the actual platform was originally intended for. I'm not really seeing very much at all. And I'm trying to push it out. And I asked my friends, hey, did you see that thing? And they say, no, I didn't see anything. What thing? So I'm pushing it out there and sharing it without the intentional direction to a specific person. And when I do that, very few people see it. And it's not because they haven't got my feed turned on or they ignored my feed, because if I post anything else, they hit like straight away. Okay, look, oh, Dave posted something. Geez, hasn't Dave tamed himself down recently? They say to themselves. But I haven't. It's just that it's not getting pushed out there anymore. It's like being in a park surrounded by people and you're on a soapbox, and only every once in a while, when what you say standing on that soapbox is palatable enough for the AI to allow all the other people to actually hear what you say. Think about that. And that's what this has turned into. I hope that any one of us listening to this station develops their own social media platform which creams Facebook. It should just be called Friend Book now or something, right? Whatever. Family Book. Because it's really, most of the really good information has been taken off it. So where it stands right now, it's just mush and fluff. That's it. I do like everything I see as a record that says I saw it, and I'll comment if I feel necessary. Oh, so Cannon says we brought the bison back. It was bison, not buffalo. Yeah, okay. Awesome. Mackie, if you haven't noticed, is not with me. He's off traveling. He does that for his job. Occasionally he'll find himself in foreign countries with little or no internet, unfortunately for him. And so this one's planned. It's known about. I know where he is. I won't advertise it on the radio, but he's out and about. Anyway, as such, I've decided to have a round table. I like them. I do them every once in a while. Whenever I've got an opportunity to go ahead and talk about just a rumbling bunch of topics, and hope to get some people on air to be able to run the idea past them, get their feedback for it. Everyone's feedback is valid. Whether I agree with it or not, it's still valid, and that's what freedom of speech is all about. So come and join me. I'll give you the number in a minute. Get ready. Get somebody to write it down. So if you're in the USA, are you ready? I hope you got your pen or pencil. Are you ready to type it into the phone, or however you'd like to do it? You could just use Skype. Skype's an easy way to do it. But I'll suggest that the way you can get in contact with me and join directly to me is by, it's only a couple of numbers off the old station number. So it's, if you're in the US, it's 347-688-2912. I was lucky to get one that was 10 numbers off the station. That's the easiest way to do it. When you dial that, it just rings my Skype and I can add you to the group call and we can join in. I've already got a couple of volunteers waiting here, and I can drag them into the call as well, which I'll do. Okay, so Cannon, if you don't mind, Cannon, I'm going to read that out. That's pretty cool. Cannon says, push out the light, fluffy stuff, Dave. Attraction is strong for the next 2 to 3 years. Enjoy the family of seeing you will find surrounding you. Well, you know what? I'm doing it anyway. And, well, the topics that I've got us to talk about tonight may disagree with the 2 to 3 years enjoyment period coming up, but we'll just see how the major players handle these situations. Now, if you're willing to dial in, please dial in 347-688-2912, or you can simply add me. You can add me to your own Skype, but I've got to add, if you're using Skype names, then everyone has to have your name, and we've all got to be sharing it so you can contribute. That's the way my Skype is set up. You can't just randomly call me. Okay, so look for David Dunger, Dunger. That's my surname. But you'll see mine. It says on air on freedomslips.com. All right. I'm going to drag John in. I haven't spoken with John for a long time. Let's pull him into the call. See if I can add him to the conversation. Oh, welcome to Shiny Side Out, John. If you're with us.
I am with you, Dave. How's is the signal strong enough? Is my audio good?
Your audio is actually perfect.
That's great.
Thank you. Thank you very much for volunteering to be part of my roundtable.
I haven't spoken to you for a long time. I haven't been on air for a while, other than a short 10 minutes I did with Hawk a week or so ago. But
wow.
Yeah. Good to hear from you, man, and keep up the good work. You do a great job.
Thanks. Thanks so much, John. It means a lot. John is in regional Australia, and we'll be able to, a bit later on, discuss the drought, whether he's affected or whether he knows of other people affected. Now, we've had some major issues here in Australia with drought conditions. And I was out getting dinner last night, and one of the strongest storms I've seen for a long time came through. It was just a thunderstorm, no tornadoes or anything. You know, it's unlikely we get that with our mountainous terrain right near the coast, but it was something else. It was 30 mil in 10 minutes or something like that, and flash flooding everywhere where I live. It was. I love it. I actually love storms. I love the power of it. I love how it's created. I love the power it generates, and I actually do like a little the fear it instills in others, because if you usually fear the unknown, and if you just become familiar with the storm. But there was someone who died yesterday in Mudgee or Wagga, I think, or Dubbo or something like that, just on the other side of the ranges in this same storm front. They were hit by lightning. And I don't think that's a good idea. No, that's bad. You should be aware of what lightning can do, how far it can travel, where you should be able to stand. If you're about to be hit, what you smell can allow you to understand that you're going to be hit, so you should change your position. It's not just random. You're putting a leader up in the air, and the negative ions attract all the bad smells around you. So it should smell like an open bin, even though there's no bin near you. That's your hint. If your hair stands up, it's even worse. All right. Okay, so next, if there's anyone in the chat room that I would love for you to participate as well in the roundtable, please do call in. And the call-in numbers are on the station's own site, and I'm just making sure that we do have those published. It used to be 347-688-2902 for the station on Studio A, but I've got another number for myself just in case that one's not available, which is 347-688-2912. Call that to join us as roundtable. John, since you're with us, I'd like to talk about our poor Australian political scene.
Man, I knew you were going to go there. I mean,
because there's
two of joke, man. A giant bloody joke.
It is a joke. It is a joke. Now, there's two of the funniest things I've ever heard in my life, right, that came up this weekend. And the first one, just to keep people up to speed, is that you've probably heard from prior shows that we recently had a leader change of the party who's the ruling party. Okay, so the ruling party stabbed in the back their own leader, ousted him, got a new guy up, and it just happened to be the treasurer. So the former treasurer stepped up to be the leader. They backfilled the treasurer role, and away we go. However, the policies don't actually change. Yeah? So this is what sort of annoys me about politics in Australia is it's not it's party political. It's not leadership. It's not a leadership game where you vote for Trump. You don't vote for the party itself. You should be you should be participating in a policy-driven politics if it's a party. So that they should randomly. It should be like a website, I reckon. It should just be like a questionnaire where what do you think about climate change? If you go, it doesn't exist, and then you'll be in one party. If you say it's an awful thing, it needs to get changed, you'll probably go green. I believe in it, but I think there's things we can do to rectify it. That would probably give you a third party. That's one way of counting votes towards people. I think it should be by policy. That way, they're going to be mandated to do the things that they say that they've promised to do because you were voted in for the policies. And I don't care if it takes me 10 minutes to answer, 30 policies. Surely no one can do more than 30 policies in 3 years. Surely. That should be more than enough. More than anyone. And if you say I don't care, then nothing happens. You only get the one vote towards the party you want, right? Whatever. Anyway, so the treasurer who became the leader forgot to renew his website. Did you hear about this, John? Well,
no, Dave, I haven't heard about his website. The Liberals at the moment are in, I guess, fire control. Wentworth got lost. We've held that seat. Oh, shit. That seat's been there for 118 years.
That's right. And 40% of those people were all that was left that voted for them. It's such a shift away from the sitting party right now that there's no way in the world now, because it was the current sitting government in Australia was leading by one vote in the House, which meant that as long as all of their participating members showed up to vote on a bill, it would get through. Easy peasy lemon squeezy, right? That's it. Because they had majority. Now they don't. Now they've just lost a seat. Now it's, oh, well, if there's any kind of voting going on, everyone must turn up, otherwise we'll lose the vote of the bill that they wanted because it was in their favour. Now they're going to be too scared to put any bills up, which means the opposition can hold them to being there by putting as many bills as they want up and just vote for them because they might get through.
Yeah, exactly, man. I'd suggest that the political climate at the moment, we will be in general election by March next year.
That's what I'm thinking too. Yeah. So just to tell you, so Scott Robertson, right? He forgot to renew his domain name and he lost it this weekend. Someone else has bought it. His own website. And now he was the treasurer before being the leader. And he forgot to pay a bill. That's really funny. As the treasurer, because you get 90 days float. So 3 months ago, when he was still the treasurer, he forgot to pay his own bill. That's really funny. To me, that's probably one of the funniest things I've ever heard.
Well, Dave, I'd suggest that he has underlings to take care of all of that.
Well, they didn't.
What really happened?
All I'm saying is someone's bought his website now, and now he can't do anything with it. Now, to get it back, that person's going to be sitting on a gold mine.
Yeah.
Because that's what happened to Shiny Side Out. We wanted shinysideout.com. Couldn't get it. Because the moment that I went to apply for it, someone bought it within 20 seconds of me buying it. And now they're trying to extort me money to get it. So I said, well, bugger it. That's 7 years now. What do I care? I've got .com.au because you need to be registered to get that, and I've got that. I'm registered. Like no one else can own it on me now. And we've got .net. But you know what? It's infuriating. So I sort of understand what Scott Morrison must be going through now in his head. Like, oh, it was only one bill. It was only like $30 or something. Now this guy might extort me for $10,000, $100,000 to get the name back. That's really funny.
Yeah, man. Remind me about this subject when we get into the tinfoil hat side, because there's something really funny going on in alternative media at the moment that I don't know if it's out there at the moment or not. But keep going with politics, and then we'll get into this the tinfoil hat stuff.
Oh, you wait. Okay, so what I've done is I've sort of listed a whole bunch of topics, and the Australian politics, not to bore the life out of anyone in the US, because I know the US has its own political landscape, and it has a populist president right now, which is good for change. You want change? You want to get out of the institutionalized, politics, and is it Kangan Kodos? No, it's like Homer Simpson, right? And it's okay. It's okay to have change. Canon Shiny Side Out is spelt without the E in shiny, but that doesn't matter. Each to their own. And this is what's really it's a game changer for US politics, is to have someone who wasn't indoctrinated, didn't go to the private schools, wasn't already anointed, was sort of like in sport, it's that there's a term for the horse that gets up that no one thought would win. Yeah. So this challenge came out of nowhere, and probably despite a lot of vote rigging, Hillary didn't win anyway. Now that's in the past. That's where are we now? Well, there's so much change going on the political landscape and geopolitical landscape that I'm quite surprised to see this much change. I thought we'd, the TPP, make some new stuff, bring back manufacturing to the US, because I think they're really good things. The moment you make your country a holiday destination is a bad thing. Then you no longer have a product. And if you can't global trade to reduce your outgoing, you want to reduce the amount of money going offshore. The goods can go offshore and the money comes in. And the balance of trade is a very important number, because that affects your dollar's value. The more people buying your dollar to get your goods, the higher your dollar goes. But if you've, like in the past, just to keep America afloat, the US dollar was connected to oil purchases, despite them not being sourced in the US. We call that the petrodollar, and I'll get to that a bit later. But what this has now meant is that dollar, the connection of the US dollar to almost all foreign trade, is now being left at an ever-increasing rate. And the abandonment of the US dollar, not just for petrodollar, because we know that Iran, China, and Russia have already left that for the petrodollar exchange. It's now the yuan. I like saying that. It's the yuan. It's the Chinese dollar, effectively. And this means that all of their trade between each other is a concealed quantity of trade. There's no foreign exchange rates. We don't know what was actually purchased and sold. And it bolsters China's dollar. And they're in for the long haul. They're in for the win. Now, remember, the only way to win a map with limited resources is to mine everybody else's resources first. And so this goal that I'm seeing, John, this goal that I'm seeing is being won at the moment by China. They're selling us inferior crap, buying our raw materials, making whatever they want for themselves, and then selling us rubbish back to us. That's just not right. And I see that as our fault. We shouldn't have let it happen in the first place. But I'll get to this. Now, this headline that we'll be able to discuss coming up now is Trump is pulling out of nuclear deal with Russia. And it says the US will pull out of the Intermediate Range Nuclear Forces Treaty, the INF, with Russia. This is Associated Press reports President Donald Trump saying he cited Russia's alleged treaty violations while at the same time vowing to develop the weapons. He says, and it's a quote, "We are going to terminate the agreement and then we are going to develop the weapons," unquote, "unless Russia and China agree to a new deal," Trump said on Saturday. Although Trump claims that Russia has violated the deal, he provided no evidence of that claim during his Saturday announcement. John, it sounds like another typical Trump deal-making conversation. But
that it does, yes, I agree.
Because he's all about deals. First, you slander everyone in public media, right? Is the Trump style. And then you say, but that's all right. Let's just make a deal. You want to make a deal? We'll make a deal. I got a deal for you, right? Let's make a new deal. Because there's an issue here, and that is the space wars. We're just about to go into the militarization of space into a big way. Now, do you think this contributes towards this? What if Russia and China say, "Oh, screw your deal. We don't need deals. Do what you want. Our weapons are better now."
Yeah, man. What about the sleeping giant, India?
Right. Yep. Now, my guess is it's a long-held belief. I think China would be first to attack India rather than everybody else. No one else would. Who's gonna lift a sword if India gets attacked by China?
This has just popped in my head. No one.
Bingo, right? So that's what I'm thinking. I'm thinking that no one would bother stepping in to save India. India's got lots of nothing, just like China has lots of nothing. I don't think there's any incentive for anyone to want to step into that war. I think China would take India for fertile land as its ever-increasing population gets bigger and bigger, and I think they're going to need something to utilize. And whether it means killing the people in India or enslaving them or doing whatever it takes, I think they've already got that. That's already on the cards. Whatever it means for India, I think that's already there because their populations are almost even against each other, India and China. They're huge populations. I didn't even know how they feed each other, right?
Yeah, man, spot on, yeah.
However, you hit a tipping point in China, you need more land straight away. Australia's got nothing, right? We don't even have water. The majority of our continent has nothing on it, right? And we're having a hard time. If we had mountains on the left-hand coastline, we would be a fertile country from left to right. But we don't. Our mountains are on the right-hand side, on the eastern side. And that means that we don't have any tropical inflow of water coming across the continent. It's blocked at the mountains in a little circle. But if they're on the left-hand side, that tropical moisture would feed all the way across the entire continent, then go up and then come back, sort of like it does in the Amazon basin. And the Amazon basin and the US share a left-hand mountain range, and both of their countries survive almost totally without desert. Ours is entirely desert. So for us...
I would only put one correction.
Go ahead.
Northwest Australia gets the monsoons. And up around the Ord River scheme, which is why all the high density plantings have been done up there because they have more water than they know what to do with.
Yeah, right. Okay.
Stuck up there.
Yep. Oh, how do I add this person? Oh, it's, this new Skype. I've got to tell you, this new Skype is pretty terrible. I've got the brand new Skype, everyone.
My head around it. It's all changed dramatically.
I know. So I don't want to add it to favorites. I want to accept. Yep, there we go. I hit accept. And then I have to hit add. And I select that. Add to group. And now this should be the new person in here as well. Is there? 3 Nicole.
I see something's popped up, yes?
Yeah, that's not the one I was after. Let's see.
Oh, okay.
Oh, technology. And I never thought I'd ever be stumped by it. Hang on. Live.
Well, you of all people shouldn't be.
No, yeah, thanks, man. You're right. There we go. I've been able to add it. And now I can welcome, we should see 4. There we go. I've got 4 now. Welcome caller to Shiny Side Out. In your own time. There we go. Do we have there's 3 or 4 in the call? Yep. Oh, not in the call. There we go. They're in the call.
No, now I see another 2 added. Yeah, okay, you're right.
That's it. Welcome to Shiny Side Out. Maybe they're muted. That's okay. It looks like they might be muted. That's still good. There you go. Welcome to new technology. Yeah.
Mr. Z, how are you?
Good. How's things down under?
They're still here.
Yeah, they're still here.
Well, I can never be sure. You never hear anything from Australia.
Clearly. So look, we just, you probably already heard, we're already talking about Trump pulling out of the INF, the Intermediate Range Nuclear Forces Treaty. For whatever that means, if it's just going to be a call to promote more deals, or it's truly has another purpose, and maybe that is to develop more weapons, because you can't be developing the weapons if you're in the treaty. See, cancel the treaty, you can do whatever you want. What are your thoughts?
Well, I mean, just because you have a treaty, it just means you can't publicly do it.
Yeah, of course.
Yeah.
Sorry, this is the tinfoil hat zone. You feel free to speak your mind.
Well, something everyone forgets, or maybe they're not aware of. Russia is, in effect, the United States of that region over there.
That's right.
And the United States and Russia work very closely together, mostly through what we call backdoor channels. There's always feces being flung back at each other through the public media and whatnot. But at least when I was working with the military in the mid-2000s, they were very, very closely, I dare even say allied together.
Yes, yes.
So with that in mind, China is an interesting thing for a number of different reasons. It's got its tip, not just in India, but it's definitely got its claws into Africa. Now, as to why they have their tips into Africa, other than just continuing to sell AKs and bullets and maybe some rice, I can't see them actually moving in and taking over Africa, because Africa is just it's a freaking mess, man. To be completely honest, it should be written off and just let them do whatever the hell they're gonna do. There's no changing things there.
Oh, I totally agree. And this is why I was saying that China would most likely take India. India has a lot more wetlands. It has a lot more food. It's the food bowl for them, or potential food bowl.
How would they spin that, though? I mean, as far as I don't know anything about India or China, but I don't think they necessarily have like relations where they're about to, shoot each other in the face over.
Right. So there's a disputed zone on the other side of the Himalayas on the India side. And there's 3 separate towns. The people who own the town and China and India have been conflicting this border for a long time. And it's not in the news. You'll find it if you Google it, right? It's not. It certainly doesn't make the top 5 stories for the evening. And it's like, if it was like a musical chart, it'd be the top 100. Yeah, it might be the top 200 stories. But they've been doing it for so long, and it's the disputed zone. And well, the way I see China, and look, I'm not speaking out of turn here. I mean, China has its own way of doing things. And
absolutely.
I agree. The US always, if you go back in history and look for the paper trail to find something, a reason for the US, you'll always find agreements. You'll find, bills. You'll find things that they did, conversations in the UN. You'll see public media, just the fluffy stuff in the media about it. But China doesn't. China's like an alien species in a video game, where it just seems to be ever broadening, and it broadens in your town, and it broadens on the map, and it broadens, and it's unstoppable. And they say, we've never been in conflict with anyone. We watched all you fruitcakes do it, 80 years ago. But we didn't do it. Well, they nearly did it. Japan and China were almost at war during World War II. Japan nearly inflicted the plague on China in World War II.
They had quite a few skirmishes in World War II.
They did. However, the deployment of plague-infested fleas in bombs filled with sand, and they were about to be deployed, except that they were in Nagasaki.
Excuse me, but if you're not watching chat, let's ask you a question. Thank you, man. Beautiful.
I can see that. Power is back. Awesome. Good news, Hawk. Well done. I think he'd been running on Jenny's for a while. That's good news, and keep up the good work, Hawk. And I think now you might be able to go to bed. It's very late there, I know. The trouble I see is that China's ever increasing presence and military presence now on the planet, and it's South China Sea problem, also the rite of passage incidences are now increasing. Their alliance with Russia is not helping the game. They're 2 very strong entities on the planet with almost, I think it's sun up to sundown. The sun never sets on them, the both of them. And I think that we'd have a hard time in a conflict. I know that China has buried underground all of its arsenal, and they've got secret airports that are camouflaged from the sky. All of their planes hangars are underground in military bunkers, so that if they could survive a first strike without even worrying.
Program, and anybody who wants to use the term will have to get his permission and pay him.
Wow. Okay. So we're back on the air now. Okay. So that's okay. We're back on the air, and Hawk had to do some cutover from his generators back to live power. So apologies for being offline. We've got about 6 minutes before the top of the hour, where there'll be a short station break. And in the meantime, I just want to finish my thought bubble on China, and then we'll go around the round table leading up to the break. Okay, so extraordinary times in the planet, right? Extraordinary times. And just to give you the idea that it's not just me thinking this, did you know they did a poll this week of US troops who participated in the poll, and I didn't have a set of the questions, but the results were the US troops fear a new major war is on the horizon. On the list is Russia and China, says the poll, and 46% of those participants in the poll, who are all US military officers or in personnel, think that war is likely. Now, and I've got a comment here. You only need to see how China behaves in the South China Sea to have any clue. First, we'll go around the table. John, what are your thoughts?
Honestly, I don't know. I don't have a well enough informed research or opinion to comment. Yeah. That's
the reason why I'm laughing is because you're bluntly honest, man. I love that about you. For me, with my tinfoil hat, I'd say that there's definitely something being planned on the cards. And if our other caller would like to comment, what's your thoughts?
Well, considering that the last two wars did not go well for the U.S., mainly, Iraq and Afghanistan, and, what other old crap we've recently stirred up there. There would have to be a really good reason for it, whether it was fabricated or actual reality, meaning somebody would have to be the actual aggressor to get the war off the ground. I can't see us pulling what we did in the last 2 or 3 years, just saying, oh, they did this, so we're going to bomb them. There would actually have to be something going on. As far as war, war is basically what we do now over here. It's kind of sad to see, and with we've been going on for war for pretty much a decade plus now. So most of the how do I put this lightly? Most of the exceptional troops, or the people that were actually qualified to go into the military, whether it be just grunts or officers, a lot of them are dead, retired, or just permanently injured now, being forced to retire. So we're basically going to go into this war, if it does happen, with minimal combat personnel, and there's a build-up that happens, and right now, we might have all the weapons and toys to play with, but we don't have too many people to actually use them.
Yeah, I hear you there. So you know that they did a recall in the US for retired pilots, and the limit was not enough.
Oh, when did they do this?
Do some Googling and you'll find that they increased it to, I think it was 1,500 pilots a month that they could unretire. They changed the legislation.
Oh, wow.
Just a couple of months back from 50.
That means they're really desperate, and
for me,
that means they don't have enough pilots.
For me, that seems they need bums on seats. That's what we call it. So
yeah. It'd be interesting to see how much actual fighter pilots or support personnel is actually.
Oh, well, they're going to need all those kind of pilots, right? So you need everybody. You need the laundry planes. You need mail planes. You need refueling aircraft. You need what are they called? C-41s or something. You need everyone. You need drops. You need drop fuel, ammo, food. You need all of these infrastructure to be able to extend out to the war front. And it's got to be being supported behind it. It's a lot of movement of goods, just goods on its own.
Yeah, and 90% of the military supports the 10% that actually goes out and
Yeah.
fight.
There you go. So as soon as I saw the story that the unretirement numbers were being increased, that to me says that something's going on. Because what would you need those people for otherwise, right? Hey, there's the music. Everyone take a rest, take a little break for yourself, take the time to donate. We'll be back in a minute. This is Shiny Side Out on Revolution Radio. I'll see you in a few minutes. All right, so you're back with Dave and Meckie's Shiny Side Out on freedomslips.com on the #1 listener-supported talk radio on the net. So push the donate button or subscribe to the archives for only $5 per month. I'd like to say hello to all of the people in the chat room, all the people who have recently followed us or liked us, or what are the other things you can do? Whatever it is on the social media platforms. If you've even commented on anything that I've posted, thank you for being with us. I am very happy that you're with us and you've invited us into your lives. I can see with my magic glasses that you've already broken free of the mainstream media. That's why you're here. You're tired of their message, of their slant on the news stories, and I actually get a real big kick out of that these days. I like the slant. What I like the most is watching competitive news outlets like CNN and Fox and watching their competitive slants. Same story, different perspective. And if I only watched one of those, I would be indoctrinated into their way of thinking, is how I could probably look at it. But when you look at the opposing stations, the only reason they oppose each other because they're one's left and one's right. I'm not going to say what. And our left and our right is slightly different to the American left and right. So just going to say they're polar opposites, probably the best way of putting it. And their slant on their news stories are evidence of this. So what I do, I try to find a balanced news outlet that has neither of those slants and just reports the facts. Now, I think the people that attract or are attracted to this station like moths to a light bulb are because we're looking for real information. We're looking for greater depth in story coverage. We're looking for opinions that, and while this does sound like confirmation bias, we're all sort of guilty of that. We'll make friend groups or groups of friends who have similar opinions, and that's called confirmation bias. Bias, B-I-A-S. And that is where we seek out others with similar opinions. The problem is that when you're only faced with those opinions, then you become polarized. So that's not what happens with Revolution Radio people normally. They seek and continue to seek a broad width of information in which to make then an intelligent decision about what is really happening. That's the hard part. That is the real hard part. Is that not the hardest part of our current environment? I put that back onto our callers.
Separating bull crap from reality, of course.
Yeah.
Just like everyday life. Something Bill Cooper said probably in the early 90s. He said something along the lines of, if I'm talking about it on the radio, I have vetted it. However, if you tell me anything from back in the day it was called the Patriotic Network. If you're getting anything off the facts or any information off the Patriotic Network, it's all bullcrap. Don't bring it to me. I don't want to know about it.
Yeah.
And I find it interesting where nowadays we're kind of at the intersection of the two, where it's not all bullcrap and it's not all true. So, you kind of got to read between the lines.
We've been graced with the owner of the stations with us, Nighthawk. Welcome to Shiny Side Out, Nighthawk. It's been a long time.
Yeah, I just wanted to let everybody know what's going on. Around about it's 3:07 in the morning to me. Around 9 o'clock tonight, my time. We had a lot of straight line. I mean, heavy. Some of the worst straight line winds I've ever seen. It actually busted 4 trees mid trunk, down line, where my power lines are. And it cut my power lines off. I didn't realize that immediately. I just figured the power would come back. It usually does. The power comes back. It's like bip, bip, bip. And then they go fix the fuse. And anyway, so my wife goes, I thought I saw some sparks out back. So she went back there and looked, and we found that we actually had full power lines laying on the ground. Oh. So we're not cell phone people. We don't have cell phones. We do have an emergency phone, one of those rotary dial things that barely work anymore. That thing didn't work. So we went down to her sister's and made a call from there to get a crew up here to fix it. An amazing 4 trucks showed up at my house. Got all the whole tree line cleaned up. They had to drop all of my lines. So I'm just letting everybody know that a UFO did not land in my house.
Brilliant, Hawk. Brilliant.
Yeah, and it has nothing to do with smart meters or any of that stuff. It was literally straight line wind. Broke off 4 trees and threw them into the power lines. And they had been working on that since 9 o'clock earlier, or 9 or 10 o'clock, something like that, earlier tonight until now. And they just now got the power on about 10 minutes ago. And we've been running under generator power since. So if anybody ever doubts my dedication, they should probably, I wish I would have filmed the argument me and my wife had trying to rewire this entire station to get power back to it.
Dude, if they get their integrity, they shouldn't be listening to this station.
Yeah.
That's the bottom line. And bit off topic, but I heard you the other night.
But anyway, we're all back up now. We're all back alive. Click a freaking ad or send $5. I don't know what to tell you guys.
Dude, you were asking for people to fill dead air at this time during the week.
Yeah, I'm like, we are really lacking during the week in in the round table, just the open air, blah, 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 time. So, okay. I mean, anybody that wants to do it can do it. I mean, I don't care.
I've got my medical condition is going to keep me immobile for another 2 months. I can do now and again, when there's dead air, jump in if you give me access to Studio A.
Well, there's no actual commitment. Just get on air if you can get on air when there's.
But I don't think I can log into the studio. I don't think I can take Studio A, or maybe I can. I'm not sure. But
that's okay. What, you guys can talk about
sometime this week. I'll give it a try.
No problems. You guys negotiate that offline. Hawk, I'll continue that message for you, buddy. That we're looking forward. The dedication of electrical crews, especially in rough weather, while the weather's still weather, is amazing. And to see them, hoik up a tree
Yeah,
and cut
exactly.
trees down and level
listen,
it out, man. I've got respect, you know.
Yeah, listen, Dave, I didn't want to invade your show. I just wanted to let everybody know was up, and I don't want to negotiate airtime per other host. I just wanted to let everybody know we're back up at full power and running. So anyway, talk to y'all later.
Thank you, Nighthawk. Get to bed, man. I know it's really late for you.
Bye.
See ya. Nighthawk, everyone. How good is that? Look, in Australia, we have the same kind of thing. So I had a tree bust off about halfway up the tree, and the canopy, the tree was 40 meters tall, and goodness knows how old, right? And it broke off, and the wind was coming laterally, and it just snapped it and pushed the top of that tree into the canopy of another tree. And I had to get people out to be able to free it loose so that it made it safe, but it actually broke all the other limbs of the other tree, and we had to lose all of those trees. So, I mean, I've seen it happen. And for me, that was a downdraft. Like, we were just off center of the downdraft, and that lateral wind during a storm busted those trees off. And I honestly, I've never seen it. But 4 trees, goodness me. We're talking, this is one of the topics that keeps coming up over and over again, that the weather is changing. The strength of the storms is increasing. And the unpredictable nature of the weather will inevitably cause climate refugees, people who can no longer live in the country they're in because the climate doesn't support the growth of food, or it's too hot. So I know I say this all the time, but, you know, John, in this country, we have a legal limit to the hot water service, to the water coming out of the hot water service is set to 50 degrees Celsius. Now, Google it if you're on Fahrenheit. But that's the legal limit of hot water so that you don't burn yourself. Any hotter than that, and it's determined that it causes tissue damage. Now, that's pretty hot. I mean, you want to pull your hand away from it, but it won't actually do you damage. They're talking the temperature is going to get to 55 degrees Celsius. That causes permanent tissue damage and scarring just from the heat. It's like crackling. You know, I smell a nice crackling out there. Oh no, it's me. My skin's all crackling up. So look, this is one of the things that I keep saying, that, you know, if you want to put your head in the sand and deny that climate change at all is not really happening, then I dare you, come to Australia, enjoy it for a while, and then go back to wherever you come from and think it's a lovely temperature where you live. All right. So on the call.
Okay, Dave, just something to put in. The trees breaking in Australia.
Yeah.
Okay, I'm with you with the downdraft, but it's compounded by how dry the subsoil is. Especially coming out of winter. We've had a very dry winter in Victoria.
Yep.
And in parts of New South Wales and Queensland, you know, we don't need to go into it. But without that really deep soil, the taproot, remember the taproot goes down as far as the tree goes up in the air.
That's right.
What is above is below. This is the system of nature. When that bottom soil is really, really dry, it's not getting that really deep energy that creates sap to flow through the tree. So the tree itself is drying out and becoming brittle, which makes it more susceptible to wind, you know, and environmental damage. Its own protection mechanism has been weakened.
Yeah, I completely agree. Absolutely, 100%. Dangerous times, as above as below. We're seeing change. And that's, I will argue anyone to where that change is and what the cause is.
And what side of change does one sit on? To me, change presents opportunity for growth and new beginnings.
Of course it does.
So we look at the negative side, or we can go, okay, what can we do now to make a difference for later? But everybody's into the self-gratification, I want now, now, now. Well, nature and the earth doesn't work that way. It's a cycle.
Yeah, good point. I appreciate that. So seeing the opportunity is good. I think that works. But there's only so much change before, in the wrong direction, of course. Negative change, which doesn't have a positive outcome. So positive change has a positive outcome, negative change has a negative outcome, and I'm sure there's opportunities can take advantage of both sides. So, for instance, if it was a sunny day, you might sell sunscreen. If it's a rainy day, which is a negative outcome, you might sell umbrellas. That's fine, but I'm talking about extreme change. So historically, when the seasons didn't line up, historically when there was a warming and there was a colding, right? A little mini ice age, little mini warming, but they balanced each other out. But still, we're getting hotter. Now, would we be getting hotter if there wasn't man-made climate change? Yeah, we would. It's still thawing out from the last ice age. And we're going to continually see a thawing out of the last ice age until it's done thawing. I'm not disputing that, and I think if you disputed that, you're also in error. Man-made climate change. Man-made climate change is in addition
we are
to
in
that.
the cycle. Are we close to the end? Because a lot of people saying that there's a solar minimum coming, and we might see a mini ice age.
No, I so doubt that.
You disagree? Okay, go on, please.
I disagree about the solar minimum causing an ice age, or we were tending towards a future ice age, having reached a peak of warmth, but that's now flipped, and we're not going near it now. I don't think. That's my opinion. And I've got scientific records. I've got records showing that it isn't. But I've also been following people. I've been following people online who are all over the ice age is coming. I watched their information.
Well, the network has a few that specialise in this subject. Mm-hmm. I'm not convinced, but personal observation in farming. The medium temperature has increased, but I'm not seeing the huge super hot days anymore, and haven't for the last 2 years.
Wait for this summer.
That's interesting. I worked a lot outdoors in the mid-2000s, and while I haven't been back to the desert proper, just about 11 years now. I can tell you over here, things are at the very least erratic. 1 year we'll have extremely hot winters, to the point where you can go outside in shorts in the middle of what should be, it should be snowing, it should be, freezing out. You're out in shorts, and then the next year, incredibly cold winters to the point where you would think, you're up north, to the point where you have pipes freezing inside while the heat is on. That's how cold it's gotten over here. And let me just say that the few times I've been scared in my life, besides exceptional circumstances, doing the job I used to do, it always involved the weather. There's something about being outside, while you're trying to do a job in the military, getting shot at, that's its own personal, hell. But when you're outside, and for me, it's always when the eye of the storm passes over. There's something about that eerie calmness you're in the center of the calmness, and you can just look out anywhere in 360 degrees, and you could just see, whatever's going on. It's just really violent, and it's very surreal. Anyway, with that said, yeah, temperatures and weather over here are definitely erratic. The storms, tropical storms, hurricanes, all that, they've been getting increasingly worse in force, but also in frequency. So I kind of have a feeling that as time goes on, we'll probably notice this in maybe the next decade or so. It'll become more apparent. But I feel like kind of like the opposites is going to happen. So somewhere like Australia, where you have incredibly hot summers, they're either going to get probably. I think personally, it's going to get a lot colder over there, or on the flip side, it's going to be a lot hotter. I just think you're kind of going to see like a weather inversion as far as normal climates go, depending on the region.
You see, and I have to thank you very much also, Buddy, for that input. That's awesome. If I open up the freezer in my kitchen and I seal it off as a physics experiment, where my kitchen was, a comfortable room temperature, but I open up my freezer, the immediate records that I'm able to get as telemetry in the kitchen, that's where you put your freezer, right? Those would immediately see a warming of the freezer. I leave the door open, unplug the power, it starts to warm up. But what happens to the air in the kitchen? The air in the kitchen starts to get colder. It's trying to form a balance, right? That's what it does. Now, as the temperature at the poles warms, it has to give out that cold temperature. Those people close to the southern and northern latitudes are experiencing a widening of the cold area only because it's no longer isolated. It's no longer. Mm-hmm. It has to make sense, right? And then eventually you'll see that the pole or the freezer has equalized to the same temperature as the entire kitchen. If there wasn't another heat source in the kitchen would result as being cooler overall. But that's not what happens on the planet. We have a thing going around, it's terribly hot, and it's providing the sun, right? Please make it go round. Don't be a flat earther on me, all right? I'm just saying. So and the tilt of the earth means we have seasons, and that seasoning allows for the build-up of cool and the build-up of heat. Unfortunately, Australia just happens to be at the perigee of... Is it perigee or apogee? Oh, that's going to do my head in for the rest of the show. Of the ellipse of the Earth's orbit around the sun, and we're just slightly closer, and we're tilted towards the sun during our summer, and we have less ozone to protect us now because of the ozone hole that still hasn't rectified itself. I don't care who you are. And I'll get to climate science in a minute, right? The climate change science, where people are intentionally modifying, weather. But we've seen some of the hottest days and records being broken, and stretches of temperature increase. Now, I argue... wait a sec. Argue all you like for it being cyclical. We're still seeing data telemetry showing it's getting warmer. My problem is our exposure to the sun's energy per square meter measured in kilojoules is going up. That's what we're experiencing in Australia. So, who knows about it? How long have they known about this happening? And what are they actually doing? My thoughts is that companies are intentionally trying to reflect more light back into space, therefore reducing the amount of kilojoules of energy per square meter on the ground, affecting a cooling. And that's a good thing, right? I think, to counter the heat.
I don't know. Allow me to put on my tinfoil hat, please, for a moment.
As comfortable as it may feel to you, go ahead.
Sure. To be fair here, we still don't know what actually caused previous ice ages. We may just be in a natural cycle where it just happens. There's people that say that the Earth gradually increases to a point where, maybe just everything melts and somehow it comes into this quote-unquote snowball effect. We had something akin to a nuclear winter where a meteorite just impacted and blew all the crap into the air, and that's what caused the ice age. But to be fair, we really don't know what caused it. So we're kind of making assumptions of stuff we don't understand, and assumptions based off of incomplete information is just that, incomplete. As to what's actually going to happen, I don't know. It'd be interesting to watch it happen, though.
Yeah, interesting is right. So, there looks to have been a number of causes. I'm not sure that you can suddenly create a cooling cycle from a warm planet without intervention. I can't in my head get a model that would make that work. The one thing that can contribute to it, though, is that the water conveyor belt ceases when there's no longer any cooling water falling at the poles.
I've heard that.
All right. So the convection current at the pole is what's really truly driving that conveyor belt. If that was to cease, immediately, we end up with the Northern Europe and Northern America under an ice sheet, because the warm water is no longer being cycled up the coastline, warming it up, or sustaining warmth anyway. So that seems like a true cyclical kind of event. But other things can cause it, like you mentioned, like a nuclear winter style of impact. Debris can, cloud the sun just enough, maybe 10 degrees temperature loss, and you've got another ice ball again. And remember, you hit a tipping point of the amount of reflective surface where it's a runaway effect. So the more ice you get, the more surface area is reflecting back. It doesn't heat the land or the water, and it runs away until it's an ice ball again.
I would suggest that there's another scenario that if we have, and it's quite visible now, volcanic activity. You get a couple of big ones go off, and you've got the same as a nuclear winter, probably 10 times as worse.
Yep. I would also like to point out,
go ahead.
The quote-unquote weather manipulation, which is real as to actual effects, and I'm not sure, but
what are the quantifiable effects? What are they measuring? What have they said that they've got 1 degree less or something? Whatever it is.
I will point out, however, a couple of years ago over here in New York, it was actually snowing in July, and And now I don't mean the snow was sticking, but I mean snow was actually falling from the sky. It wasn't like soap flakes or something, but that's kind of weird. I don't know how to explain that other than, something was going on.
I completely agree. And I remember seeing that. And I remember seeing snow in Miami as well. So impacts, depending on their size, can also unleash the power of the volcanic environment. So given a large enough impact, you might sprout lava out of extinct volcanoes right across the planet if it was large enough. The shockwave might bust all the plugs. So there was, and seems to be, oh goodness me, I'm having a hard time today here. Seems to be.
Can't you just grab a beer?
Oh, I can't. That's all right. I've just to let everyone know, I dislocated my shoulder back in March, and I tore tendons, and I've had a hard time, and now I'm on all kinds of medication, to be honest, and including steroids and morphine for the pain, and it's absolutely crazy. The pain is crazy, and but anyway, bear with me. I'll be right. So, look, scientists, I think 3 years ago now, identified for the first time a crater in the Indian Ocean below, between Australia and Africa, sorry. And the crater is 29 miles across. Massive crater. Now, the same thoughts around that crater are what Meki and I share, and we have shared this on air before. So it's not new news, but if you've not heard it, it might be new to you. And that is that the angle and debris field are consistent with stories from India where it rained fire and water at the same time. The stories are consistent with sediments that were laid down across Australia from the ocean bed in Madagascar, I think, in the valleys containing seafaring organisms in the valleys in Madagascar. That this appears to have been the impact that was the Great Flood story. And that's the timeline that they're working on, or, theorizing at the moment to do with that impact. Now, that impact was so massive that it split the ocean floor in 2 directions or 3 directions, I think. And that it would be so significant that water would have gone into space and frozen.
That's
as a
cool.
result. Yeah. And it would have been a 10-mile high wave of water until it, diminished itself up until the eastern side of the Australian continent, where it met with the range, the mountain range, and all the sediments slowly settled, leaving it sea floor perfectly level in the Hay Plain. And I've driven across that. That's amazing. All right. So just saying, and that would have wiped all life out up until the ranges. It would have put a wave across Antarctica.
Yep. Here, this might be a good time to point this out, and whether it'd be interesting to see if you guys agree with this or not. But as much as we've come in terms of knowledge, technology, and insight into what has happened and what goes on this place we called Earth, I gotta be honest with you. I'm not gonna go into crazy experiences that I've had, but as a whole, I still don't think we know a tenth of how this place works. We kind of have like a rough idea, and we draw assumptions from it, and we're able to do some pretty amazing things with technology and communications and all that. But as far as nature goes, I really don't think we have a very big understanding of the full picture of how this place works and why it does what it does. I think we're missing a few key pieces.
That's a really good point. I think we have a long learning process to go, and I don't want to ever make the mistake of saying we know, because I really don't. All right. We've been joined by Bill. Bill, it's been a long time, buddy. How are you doing? Welcome to Shining Side Out.
Pretty good. Hey, thank you very much, Dave. Hopefully you can hear me. The cold just really poured in. I kind of have a cold already myself, by the way, but as of minutes ago. But yeah, we have the Johns and John Z. How you doing, guys? But I always you always put on a great show. You and Mecky, and always very informative. You always do your research and are very personally interested in what you're doing. It's always a great show. The only thing I think I've ever disagreed with you on is this issue of global warming. It's pretty much proven, and I figured it out more or less when I was a kid as well, and I brought it up in school, like probably no later than first grade. But they've already pretty much proven that anytime there's ever been a heat wave, a record heat wave, it's always been far more than overcome by extreme cold from elsewhere. And we have new pathways, new aerial pathways, and the Earth buckles. It crumples differently now because of the moon and the way the atmosphere is not charged up by the sun, all kinds of things like that. But I figured out the lie. In other words, you already said part of it. In other words, the runaway effect, you get too much ice. Ice reflects the sun, so it gets even colder, forming even more ice. Now, what it comes down to is the only see what they're also adding into the global warming. They've been caught countlessly lying, fudging, and placing the thermometers, the readouts everywhere that it's specifically going to be hot. And it's not just that. Every time we have a massive 1,000-mile forest fire, they add that in as if that was from the sun, as if the atmosphere just happens to be trapping more heat than it ever did before. So they're adding in, let's say, 100 miles of forest fire that now go on for 10 months. Now how hot is fire? About 450 degrees ish or hotter, right? Depending. So it's not like it's 30 degrees going a little hotter or 80 degrees going up to 90. Now you're adding hundreds of degrees into the mix, and all their lies and fudges and their exclusions. But what it comes down to is this: we are always have been at dire risk of falling and plunging into an ice age, always, because the Earth can't sustain a tropical Earth, not even in a thermal runaway, because eventually there would be so many clouds from the steam rising, the risen, hot water vapor, that it would reflect the sun. But not only that, once all the carbon, CO2 is released, and once the plants finally start to grow, once the deserts have been saturated themselves enough, since everything is now humid, and suddenly there's a runaway effect of plants, and it finally catches up, all those plants absorb and balance out perfectly how, kind of stabilizes how moisture is in the air, but they cool the ground down. Now there's no more deserts. And in any water that is cold, any ice that used to be there, it's just like you said, if hot air hits cold ice, the air becomes cold, but it's not just that. The ice may melt, but it's still as cold as what? Ice water. It's freezing cold. Then it runs off. It runs off where? Not into the air. It runs off into the ocean. Now it cools. So the air cooled the ice. The ice is now ice water. Then the ice water cools off the ocean. And see, it's a runaway effect because too much heat always creates too many clouds. It can never sustain. Once the plants finally grow too much, they'll suddenly cause all the shading, and there'll be no more deserts, and suddenly, eventually, there'll be a reverse effect. We're always at high risk of plunging into an ice age. Ice causes more ice, which causes more ice, which causes more ice, and that's the problem. So I'm sorry I took so long to explain that.
It's okay, Bill, mate. As I said into our private chat, everyone's voice matters, and I listen to every single person, because without the right information, I can't make an informed decision. So I at the top of the hour, or just before the last break, I mentioned confirmation bias, and that's where you prefer only listen to that supports your idea or opinion, and therefore what you'll accidentally do is drive down the wrong cul-de-sac, right, down the wrong road, only being supported by opinion that suits yours, like being surrounded by yes men, right? If that makes sense. So, Bill, love your point of view, and I still, for me, the
spot on, man. I'm not
the news
yes man,
needs to be out there.
If you cannot challenge someone's thought, then there's no point.
Not challenge, it's just bringing information to people. I think is very important.
Says yes, a closed mind says no.
Mm-hmm.
So if we open to all possibilities, it's up to your own discernment to weed the wheat from the chaff and come to an informed decision for your own sake.
Do you know what? If this is a virtual universe, think about this. In a computer game, you can have an infinite universe. Like you could fly in a particular direction and it would never end, because there is no limit. I mean, it's just a computer game, right? In a real universe, I've got to ask you the question, how could there ever be an infinite real universe? Because that's impossible. It's like
impossible.
The Matrix.
Oh,
It's
Dave, that's
impossible.
real.
It's like the Matrix,
that.
because it would only ever be finite if it was real. I'm not going to say you're going to hit a wall. Maybe it loops back on itself, but it can't be infinite. It's impossible. But in a simulation, you can have anything because it's not real. And this is the problem that I face. Okay, but my point is, if this was a simulation and all of our thoughts are generating its outcome, see where I'm going now, right? I had to set the scene. Then however many people, if the majority of people are thinking it's going to be another ice age, then maybe that will occur instead. Maybe the outcome is only because we're here generating the outcome. Like this double slit experiment. The double slit experiment collapses to our perception of how it should behave only upon observance of it. Otherwise, it goes about its own business. Like the rendered screens in a video game and the ones that aren't rendered that are behind you. The ones you're not looking at don't actually exist until you look at them. I hope I'm not dragging everyone down this path.
No.
So that people don't understand what I mean, right? Bill, tell me.
Yeah, that's an important point, but see, that's an ultra important issue. But on the other side of it, people take it too far for a different wrong kind of reason. The double slit experiment, yes, it's actually staggeringly important, except that it's also a perfect, very limited science. It's either this or that. It doesn't form daisies on the other wall. It's either it's still electrons hitting the wall. It's just the type of outcome is either or, and it's an exact science. You're either looking at it or you're not. If you're not looking at it, here is the exact science of what the outcome will be. And if you are looking at it, here is the exact opposite, the only other option of what it will be. That's it. And it does not mean there is actual waves. It's acting like waves, and that's a mechanical action. That's an etheric mechanical action. So it could simply be working by normal mechanical action still, but everything in the universe is predeterministic anyway. So it was predetermined that you were going to look. And the entire
That's a good
setup.
point too. I like that.
Yeah, the entire setup that created both you and the experiment were all predetermined, and it could only be one or the other. Otherwise, it could not be experienced. Laws of experience have a rule on what you're able to experience. And but sorry to ramble on. The one other thing, Dave. Sorry, guys. See, the universe can't be any less than infinite. You can't have any limited number without an infinite number. It can't. It can only be infinite. See, that's kind of a long story, but I'll shut up now.
Well, I'll tell you that the sum of all of the whole numbers to infinity, of course, you can't actually add infinity because it's not really a number, but the actual answer of the sum, like x equals the sum of all the whole numbers up to infinity, at some point, to be able to do the equation, you've got to sort of chop off infinity. So you could say it was infinity minus 1, right? Because that just leaves you with a whole number still. The actual answer is minus 1/12. It's impossible.
Well,
and that equation is used in physics tons of different examples of how that is used as a deterministic outcome in physics equations. And I had to put that out there because being infinite is truly without end. And only from our little perspective here in our little galaxy, we look over our back fence like we live in suburbia and you see a couple of houses down the street or whatever, yeah? That's really our whole perspective. And we don't have a true understanding at all about what the real universe looks like. We can look so many billion years, but that's really just a pocket of what there might be even further than that. We don't know. We don't know if we're in a box. We don't know if we're like a sub-particle to another universe. We have no idea. And these are theories, and they're good theories. And I think it's these exciting times in this, and we've got jobs for philosophers for the rest of existence trying to work this out, because I don't think we'll ever get to a point where we'll be able to visit the edge or see past the edge. And I'm not saying this is a flat earth and everyone's going to fall off the edge, right? And bringing it back to an earth state or measuring. I'm not using the human scale as a measuring stick. But I think it's important from my perspective to examine the universe and understand that these other theories that are coming out about it being a virtual environment might actually be pretty good.
Oh, man, may I have a few words?
You both can.
Okay, look. I had an experience or awakening a few years ago that suggested that we are in a simulation. This is a virtual reality. And we may be our higher selves playing a game to let us experience a physical reality, and it's just a game, so good or bad doesn't matter because all we're doing is playing.
Mm.
And it's right out there.
Well, the game still hurts unless we know what we're doing, but unless we.
But isn't the idea to experience things that cannot be experienced in a higher level?
Well,
There
the
you go.
idea is to reach a perfect experience, but in order to experience perfection, you must experience imperfection in order to have a contrast and know the difference. And
No
in order-
pain, no gain, Bill.
Right. But we can't help it because you can't have a definition of pleasure without the definition of pain. It can't happen. It must.
Exactly. So why not choose, if you're close to being a supreme being and you want to have a play, God, this has got to be one of the greatest places in this galaxy to play in.
Final
So wouldn't
game.
you choose to come here and have some fun? It's not going
I'm
to
not
hurt.
having that much fun, John.
Maybe you came
I
here
hear you.
to get the pain that you haven't had. See, this is really tinfoil hat stuff, and it's.
John,
Well,
I think you
don't know.
raised. I think your point that you raised is pretty good. It's certainly something that religious texts tend to favor unwittingly into being part of those rules. So I can't tell you about heaven, but it exists. Don't worry about that. And you'll go there after you finish playing here. You'll meet people that aren't even here. They'll all be there waiting for you. Imagine if you finished playing a video game and you suddenly woke up and only to realize that this whole thing was a video game. Yeah, isn't that another description for living here and then
Isn't
dying?
that another way of describing lucid dreaming?
Yeah, and when we dream, we connect to each other outside of this plane of existence as well.
Oh, I'm
If-
sure
if you
we all
didn't-
know
if you
each
didn't
other
know,
in
but
another
you can.
dimension for sure.
So maybe all of these things are real. You know, I didn't even get to the other three good real topics. There's only 2 minutes left, and I'm never going to do it. All I'm going to read is the headline: Russia to totally ditch U.S. currency. That's what they're going to do. That China is on notice as America's next big enemy, right after Russia. And still with China, they're launching a super bright fake moon to use less power at night to light streets. And I have to say that this is the stupidest thing I've ever heard, unless of
On
course
fire.
it's full of unless of course it's full of space weapons like a Trojan horse, but
It
less
is.
gift to the US, but more cloaking their intentions. What do you guys think?
It is a space weapon, and it alone is a massively dangerous thing they were trying to stop for about 50 years now. A simple space mirror, let's say made out of blinds, mirror blinds, like the kind in your window. You just aim them right, you can burn down New York City in half a second.
Mm-hmm.
Easy to put up, unfurl, bam, done, city's gone.
That's right.
Just like that. They are a weapon.
Oh, I've got no doubt they're a weapon. And this lines up with what I was saying before about China and its ever increasing perimeter. Eventually it'll own the whole planet. And we better like rice. That's all I'm saying. But that's more likely going to happen than anything else. I'd like to thank all of my guests that I've had on the show today. Thank you very much. Bill, John, the two Johns, and Nighthawk. Thank you very much for being part of Shiny Side Out.
Thanks,
This-
Dave. Have a good night.
You too, Bill, man. Take care. This
Later,
was show number 345. Who knew we would have done this many weekly shows? It's crazy, it's good. And there's the music. Take care. See you next week, everyone. This excellent show was fantastic. Take care.